First slide, you might immediately think open tunings, and for good reason. Open tunings sound fantastic, especially when paired with a slide, but we really should know at least a little bit of slide in standard tuning today. That's what we're going to get into in this lesson. Premium members have access to an additional lesson covering the second 12-bar solo with slow, detailed instruction. Plus, members have access to additional lesson materials like downloadable PDF and Guitar Pro tab files and the incredibly useful SoundSlice interactive tab player for this lesson and many others. You'll have access to the entire library of premium lessons. If you're not already a premium member, you can find out how to join at the link in the description. Now, let's get on with the lesson, starting with the turnaround that serves as a great little intro. I'm going to use a thumb and index finger picking style here for the turnaround. You'll see me switch into a thumb and three finger approach later on, but I like the vibe that this gives. So we're going to start out with the open sixth string, open first string. So that's thumb, index with the picking. And then what I'm going to do is fret this little piece of an E7 chord. We've got our B on the fourth fret of the third string, and then the D, giving it that E7 sound, on the third fret of the second string. And I'm just going to push through both of those strings with my thumb, then up with the index, then back up a fret with both of these fingers and do that again. All right, so far. Then what we're going to do, after we let that E on top ring again, we're going to bring the slide in. So this kind of fakes you out a little bit. You kind of think you're doing this. And that's the heart of it. That's the structure. But instead, we're going to change things up with that little slide in there. I love it. It's the small things sometimes. All right, so you see what I'm doing there is sliding into that G note, third fret, first string, and then open first string. Let's do it slowly. All right, after that, we're going to get in an E7 form here. So open sixth string and then brush up through the top three strings. This little move to get us into B7. So what happened there is G on the third fret of the sixth string. And then I'm hammering up from the open fourth to the first fret of the fourth, and that's in the chord. So we're kind of going there right now. And then hit the B on the fifth string, second fret. All right, and then we're just going to strum a little down, up with the fingers. So down strum with the thumb, and then up with the index. And notice I'm really just hitting these strings that are fretted, right? So just strings 5, 4, and 3. You could certainly get the open second string. It's a B, so it works really well here. But I want to take care to hit just the strings that I want to hit. So a couple things that might be hard to see is I'm muting out the sixth string by putting the middle finger, just touching it. So if I happen to hit that with one of these big strum movements, it's going to be muted out. And then I just have to remember not to get super aggressive and hit that open first string. I don't have a free finger here, or I'd fret that at the second fret. So then we're just going to get out of this, turn around with the G on the sixth string, which helps us get back around to the main bit over E. So here's the turnaround. Now we need to set the tone for the piece with the main theme that includes that cool ear-grabbing jump up to the 12th fret. All right, the fun part here to play is definitely that jump from where we're working mostly around the open position up here to the 12th fret. But we got to get there first. So let's back up and have a look at what's going on. First thing is I'm using a dead bass. I'm muting with my palm the sixth string, and I'm using my thumb to push through on each beat. So 1, 2, 3, 4. And then I open up the phrase on the third fret of the first string. All right. So let's unpack that. On the and of 1, I slide up from the 2nd fret to the 3rd. And then what's happening is I'm picking, and by the way, this is where I'm switching to my thumb and 3-finger picking approach here. Use whatever works for you, but I'm switching to this. And what I'm doing is you'll see that there is some pinching with the bass and then plucking it by itself. That's the first string being plucked. With the bass. And what's happening with the slide is I'm sliding in from the 2nd fret to the 3rd. And then when we get through here, I'm sliding back down from the 3rd toward the 2nd fret. And then I'm pinching the 3rd string open with the bass and hammering up to the 1st fret. And then doing that classic blues sound and rolling through to the 1st string. All right, but now we're at the 1st beat of the next measure, which jumps up to the 12th fret, and apply some vibrato here. But what I'm doing is using my middle finger and my ring finger on my picking hand to pluck strings 2 and 1 respectively. So middle finger is on the 2nd string and the ring finger is on the 1st. And a little tip here. The moment you're done on the fretboard and you play that open 1st string, get moving. Come on up here. Get your eyes on that 12th fret and target it with that big movement. Right? The more you focus on that, the easier it's going to be to land this really big jump on the fretboard. All right, so release as soon as you can and move up here. And again, I'm just plucking these two at the same time, applying a little bit of vibrato, and let's start walking through this measure. So after that big jump, 1 and 2 and 3. All right, so we continue this idea of picking on strings 2 and 1 with the open. That's on the and of 1, so 1 and 2. Here we're going and playing those same 2 strings under the slide at the 3rd fret. I'm going to push the slide toward the 4th fret. I'm not going to get there. And then open. All right, and we just need a little bass tag to get us out of this. So what's happening there is the G on the 6th string 3rd fret, and then open 4th, and then up to the E on the 2nd fret 4th. All right, and what I'm doing there picking wise is bass, 6th string with the thumb, and then the index finger plucking the 4th string. So, all right, and we do sneak in one of these little brush ups after. Just before our little bass tag. Let's have a look at all of this put together. All we did there at the end of the 4th measure was, instead of hammering up to the 2nd fret on the 4th string to end it out, I hammered up to the 1st fret. That's going to carry us into our next part. This sets up the main theme and the overall feel of the piece, but now we're going to punch things up a little bit with a cool rhythm as we move into the 4 chord, A7. So after our little move into this A chord, we're going to play the open 5th string, and we're going to keep that bass pumping throughout the next 2 measures over A. Bass is now 5th string, and I'm still doing a palm mute here. But then I want to do a brush up on the end of 1. When we hit that bass, that's 1. Brush up with the index finger, and then I'm going to strum down through the strings for beat 2. So it's a little... Alright, and I will mute out the strings. I want to kind of choke them out right here because we're going to get rid of the bigger sounds and move into just the single note with the slide. That's where we're going. But on that down strum, try to use the flat part, the top of your nail here. What I'm doing is really just kind of flicking through the strings, and I'm emulating the attack of like a flat pick here. That's what I'm going for. All right, but on the end of 2, right after that big down strum that gets chopped off, I'm going to start sliding from the 3rd fret to the 5th. Then when I get there, I'm going to hold that position with the slide. I'm going to pinch the bass. This is now beat 3. Remember, our bass is 1, 2, 3, 4. Well, now that we're on 3, we're going to pinch that A note on the 1st string, 5th fret. And then for beat 4, we're going to do it again, but start sliding back down. And then just before the measure end, we're going to hit the open 6th string to start this bass stumble into the next measure. That's what we're looking for. That stumble lands on the open 5th string, which is the start of the next measure. That's the downbeat. So we want to get into. And then we're going to do that same up, down strum, and move back up to the 5th fret. But here, remember when we pinched before, we just let that hang? What we're going to do now is do a little triplet with the 1st string and the 2nd string, and then back to the 1st string. And that's beat 3 of this measure. Then what we're going to do for beat 4 is come back down to the 3rd fret, and we're going to use that same idea that we used before. Hit the 3rd fret and kind of start moving toward the 4th, but don't get there. So we've got the triplet, and then those 2 strings open. Then we're into E, and we can push play on what we've already done. Even that part, because we're hammering up and getting ready now to change, not into an A, like we used that little changed tag, but here we're moving into B. And we'll cover that in the next section. Now let's bring this thing home by moving into the 5-chord B7. This is how we get into B. This is right out of a B7 chord. But we're just going to focus on the B note on the 5th string, 2nd fret. When we get there, that's beat 1. That is the chord change, right? We're just playing that. Beat 2, we're going to slide in to the 4th fret across strings 4, 3, and 2. And I'm just pushing through and doing a strum with my thumb there. All right. Beat 3, we start this little phrase. Alright, where we slide up to the 5th fret, back down to the 4th, and then 4th and 4th on strings 2 and 3. And then, just to end us out, we're going to let this breathe with some open strings here. As we move down, same set of strings, but now over A, right? 2nd fret, so over A. And then that little phrase on the 1st string. and no bass here. So you can do what I'm doing to clean things up and lay your thumb all the way across the strings. I'm resting it on top of the second string here, and it's laid back over all the other strings. First string needs to be available to play, which I'm going to do with my index finger, but this keeps any unwanted string noise from happening from those other strings. They physically can't vibrate. All right, that gets us into E, and from here it's turnaround time. And remember at the beginning when I said we can do some variations on the turnaround, we're doing one here. So instead of hammering on the 4th string first fret, we can do it on the 5th string and do that classic blues walk up. Either one works. That works, or this. And we're going to strum out just like we did at the beginning, taking special care to make sure that we're not hitting any strings that we don't want ringing. We don't want that, right? We want just the heart of this chord before wrapping up. If you learned something from this lesson, please give the video a thumbs up and subscribe to the YouTube channel. And if you want to go deeper, grab the additional lesson materials like the tab, a slow pace tutorial. You can do that by joining BGI at the link right over here. I hope to see you inside my BGI. Until then, practice smart and play on.